Okay, so hi, we're back. I'm Dr. Rutherford. I am a chiropractic physician and a board certified functional neurologist. This is
Wait,
Dr. Randall Gates.
you're not.
Oh, he's the board certified functional neurologist.
Board certified chiropractic neurologist is the technical way to term it.
And I
Dr.
am,
Randall
what am
Gates.
I? I'm a
You're a
functional
certified
medicine
functional
doctor.
medicine practitioner.
Can you tell I was just talking about 23 different things before we just started here? I was just told I could broadcast for 10 hours, but I don't think that discussing fish oil, the truth about fish oil, this is Dr. Gates's topic today, if he chose the topic. And why are we picking on fish oil? Because we're kind of sort of going to pick on fish oil. Not really like badly. If you're taking fish oil, it doesn't mean you have to stop taking it. But we've spent a lot of time developing protocols to help people with chronic pain issues, chronic syndromes, and as a lot of people now know today, inflammation, which has more causes than you can count, um, is pretty well understood out there. A lot of patients that come into me are pretty kind of like, yes, it's inflammation. It's kind of like, okay, I get that. I know it's inflammation, and what we need to figure out is what's inflaming you. There are a lot of products out there, obviously, now for inflammation, and over a period of time, we've used a lot of them intermittently, off and on, until we got to our current protocols. So we noticed that fish oil is part of a lot of different protocols. I notice when I go to Walgreens, I probably shouldn't say like a name or something, or if I go to a pharmacy, or if I go to Costco or something, there's huge sections just devoted to all the different type of fish oils. Kind of makes me feel like we're going to be like emptying the oceans for fish oil. And we're not going to make the point that it's not potentially useful, because obviously it has been proven to be useful for a variety of functions, brain function and anti-inflammatory, etc. However, in our clinical world, we're responsible for patients seeing results, and we have to use certain methods to change symptomology, to get conditions to calm down and or disappear. And we haven't had maybe the greatest experience with fish oils versus, say,
Yeah.
even turmeric.
Right.
We've used turmeric, which we don't use that often anymore, but we've used turmeric. And when we used it in high dosages, we saw significant changes
Right.
in patients' inflammatory symptomology versus fish oil. I would say that we didn't really see that much. And we just thought it might be a topic to be able to represent maybe other things, to get you to start thinking in a certain way
Mhm.
relative to your inflammatory issues and so on and so forth. So since Dr. Gates was the one who really thought this was a pertinent topic, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let him run with it, and I'll just kind of like jump in here every now and then if necessary to maybe translate a few words for you or something along those lines. But this was your interest. Why don't you share with them what your interests were in bringing this to the forefront?
Well, you have studied under Dr. Dan Murphy, as have I.
I did.
Dr. Dan
Good
Murphy
guy.
is a
Good guy.
fantastic physician, and he has brought to light to many chiropractors the beneficial effects of fish oil. And when I was going through my training, Dr. Murphy would just hammer us with study after study after study on the effects of fish oil relative to heart disease, relative to
And he
chronic
does
pain.
seminars on it.
He does.
He
And
does entire 2-day seminars
yeah,
on fish oil.
hundreds of articles. And there are thousands of articles in the literature. But
Yes.
so he talks about fish oils ad nauseum, and yes, fish oils are beneficial. The basic premise of fish oils is that the foods we eat here in the United States of America are largely inflammatory, especially the meats that we eat. So that cow that you're eating when you're having a hamburger, when it's out in the pasture, its inflammatory ratio to non-inflammatory ratio is 4-1. And then once that cow goes to the feedlot and it eats corn basically for 3 weeks, its inflammatory ratio goes to 25-1. to inflammatory to non-inflammatory. And so the argument for fish oil is that, well, we're eating a very inflammatory diet, so therefore we need to take fish oil, which will counterbalance the inflammation from our diet. And yes, there have been beneficial effects demonstrated in the literature. However, as Dr. Rutherford is saying, and as I started to observe too in clinical practice, is that we would use fish oils and they just didn't seem to make as much of a difference, hardly any difference compared to these other modalities.
We get so many patients that come in here, and that when I'm doing the interviews, to kind of qualify that person to determine whether they would respond to the types of things that we do. One of the things that I'll see is a lot of people come in with two bags. One will be their drugs and one will be their supplements. And one of the first questions we'll ask to try to get some data on what might be happening with that person is, which of those supplements are helping you? And frequently, the answer will be, well, I don't know. Or a person might have a whole bag of supplements, and maybe they'll say one or two of them. This one seems to change this symptom. For the rest, I really don't know. I'm just taking them. I can honestly say I have never had anybody say fish oil in the category of fish oil has changed everything for me.
Right.
And I don't know,
I haven't either. Yeah.
It's a big industry. I'm not trying to put fish oil people out of business, and I understand the theory behind it. I get it. I don't take fish oil. And I've had plenty of reasons in my brain to take fish oil, with multiple concussions and things of that nature. But we have not seen somebody come in and go, wow, I took fish oil, it changed my life.
No, not at all.
Or got rid of my symptoms, or it even lessened my symptoms. So I would agree with you there.
And I think when we look at the way we structure our program, and we'll talk about it later, if you look at someone's diet, you can take 3 grams of fish oil a day, and that's all well and good. But if you're eating 30 grams of inflammatory fat...
So if you were the cow, instead of taking fish oil, you would stop eating the corn, right?
Exactly.
There's a silly...
There's the point of our broadcast right there.
That is the broadcast. Okay, we're done. We'll
see you next week.
We'll see you next week. But in essence, that's really the key. I mean, what we try to accomplish here, and what we think should try to be accomplished today, is to try to come up with protocols that are going to allow people to eliminate their problem long term, taking the minimum amount of whatever drugs, supplements, whatever needs to be taken at a minimum, because frankly that's going to increase compliance. If a person has to take 30 supplements 3 times a day, which I have seen in patients coming in, that has to be enormously expensive. That expense and just taking that 3 times a day decreases compliance. If that's your program that makes you feel better, and I don't know how 30 supplements a day can make you feel better, and I know people out there jumping through the ceiling right now, but that decreases compliance. Our place is here, our clinic is called Power Health, and what I should have named it was Empower, EMPOWER Health, because that's really what it was intended to do, was to give the power back to the patient. A lot of our patients who drive by here in Reno, Nevada, poke their head in and say, "Oh, Power Health, I thought this was a gym," to make power. But really that's what it's all about. And it's our, at least it's my belief, that if you have to take things, and I'm not saying, I mean, I take a couple supplements, and I even take a thyroid medication, for those of you who are going to be jumping out of your skins right now. Okay, but I feel the more you have to take, the more you have to depend on doctors, the more you have to depend on people, I think the less it empowers you. I think you feel a little bit weaker as a human being, and I actually think that affects your immune system, and I believe that it affects your overall health. So, not to bang on fish oil, but it's like the very perfect entity to make this point, because we just don't see it making a whole lot of difference. I don't know, brain function?
There's been a ton of studies on cognitive decline that fish oil can prevent.
This is the brain guy.
And that's all well and good, and we're not saying not to take fish oil, but what we are saying is that you probably should look at the other larger factors that result in the need for fish oil. So
I guess if they're one of the people out there who actually has fish oil that helped them, then they're going to screaming, "You're an idiot! It really helped."
We'll probably get a lot of really nice comments.
Man, then you really need to listen to this because you got some stuff going on in you that's causing inflammation in your brain that needs to be addressed more than taking fish oil.
Yeah.
Well,
no, it's true. And so, if you have inflammation, if you have heart disease, if you have severe chronic pain, if you have cognitive decline, or you feel that you're going into Alzheimer's, then yeah, fish oil can be a benefit. We do use fish oil, as we've said. We just haven't seen a huge jump in results. Yeah. I've seen one improvement in pain using high-dose fish oil. I will say that. One improvement.
And we've treated a lot more than one patient.
Yeah, and that's in 3 years. So maybe our great patient out there is watching. But overall, what we're trying to get at is, okay, so if you're consuming 3 grams of fish oil but 30 grams of inflammatory fat, that's probably where we need to start looking. And we need to start looking at your diet to see what you're eating is actually making up your cellular membranes. And I think that's where fish oil was such a novel concept, because they were saying, oh my gosh, you could take this good fat and the person will feel better, they'll have less inflammation. And it's because of the concept that our cells are made up of what we eat, which seems so simple, but lots of times in healthcare that is forgotten. Mm-hmm. And so that Big Mac is going to turn into your cells, and then if, let's say, you bend over and you hurt your back, and the cells in your lower back, a few of them start to split apart, well, all that inflammatory fat from the Big Mac starts going into your bloodstream, basically, and that activates your immune system to attack that area. So it creates amplified inflammation. Whereas if
you're wondering why you're not getting better, if the chiropractor is adjusting you,
exactly.
or the acupuncturist is working on you, or the physical therapist is working on you, and nobody's looking at this particular aspect. And today it's becoming more popular for musculoskeletal practitioners and massage therapists, et cetera, to give certain types of things to help the inflammation. But still, what we're trying to make a point of is where the rubber meets the road, and a lot of you are going to want to hear this maybe, is what's going into your system. Stress, infections, when we're going to talk about those types of things. But I would particularly say, if you're one of the people out there that fish oil has helped, and we don't meet a lot of them, and I'm just telling you, this is what we do for a living. A lot of the things that we're going to talk about here over the next 20 or 30 minutes are why you're needing to take that. If you're not someone who wants to change your lifestyle, if you will, maybe you don't need to watch the next 20 or 30 minutes.
Well, and let's use you as an example. So Dr. Rutherford is a grain-free vegetarian. He will probably never have a heart attack, even if he lives to be 170 years old.
Which is not my goal, just for the record.
But he's eliminated the factors that underlie all that inflammation that plagues heart disease patients and things of that nature. Now, yes, we're all going to die at some point, but he's handling the things on a daily basis to prevent systemic disease rather than needing to take fish oil, as an example. So that's really where we're going. Why don't we go into the fine set? How about you go over that? Or do you want me to go over that? Okay. So we had the pleasure of being with Dr. Alex Vasquez. Dr. Vasquez started his training as a chiropractor. Then he became a naturopath. Then he became a doctor of osteopathy, basically a medical doctor. And he has basically a great perspective on all sides of the healthcare continuum. And so he put on a seminar last year termed the International Conference on Human Nutrition and Functional Medicine. And he presented his flow chart, so to speak, of how he works up a patient. And we have adopted this in our clinic, and it's really clinically very useful and has a ton of utility. So,
in other words, our percentage of patients that are getting better has gone up significantly, as well as the time elements for them to get through protocols to get better have also reduced. So people are getting better, more people are getting better faster.
And I must say it's easier to communicate with patients too. Kind of like I laid out your program. Yeah. I can say, okay, here's the food you need to focus on, so on and so forth. So it entails looking at someone's food. What a concept. And so
starts with food.
Starts with food. And relative to the fish oil topic, we may as well broach grass-fed meats at this
Oh,
point as well.
absolutely.
And so we're now seeing, as I mentioned, that the cow, when it's out in the pasture, it has an inflammatory ratio of 4-to-1, rather than the cow that goes to the feedlot that has a ratio of 30-to-1, and so, or 25-to-1. And so a lot of people are now consuming grass-fed beef, organic free-range chickens that haven't ate grained. And what they're seeing there is that when they eat those meats, then they're not getting the inflammatory fats like the standard American diet provides from any standard supermarket. So that's one very big deal. So we talk about people's food, and we see that there are certain foods that feed concentrations of bacteria in the gut that we're now seeing that create a ton of inflammation that we're going to talk about. Inflammation coming from your gut. We also see that certain dietary proteins, let's just use casein and whey as an example, from milk. So milk proteins can be very inflammatory on the system and promote insulin and things of that nature. So we look at diet intensively, but diet is not the only thing. Diet is one of 7 factors that we consider.
Yeah, diet is food allergies.
Mm-hmm.
Diet is food allergies. Diet is lack of, well, maybe not lack of absorption. That would be another part of this. But diet is as Dr. Gates said, kind of the, what do you call it, the SAD diet, standard American diet, McDonald's and Burger King. It's food allergies. It's modified foods. It's foods with bacteria, with antibiotics in them. That's what you need to look at when you have chronic people coming in. I'm writing an article right now called "Why I'm Not Getting Better." This is basically the article. We can adapt it from fish oil and why I'm not getting better, and that's what you need to look at food-wise, and all that's inflammatory. In fact, when Dr. Gates gets to the part of this in my article that says inflammation is a big part of why you're not getting better, then I say, and everything in this article and everything we're going to talk about here and more is inflammation. And do you want to just take, and there are some things out there that are very powerful for inflammation. The turmeric can be powerful. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some of these juices that
right, the Zango,
I mean, they actually, to me, get a better result than the fish oil on top, and they're not cheap. They're not cheap. But if people think our vitamins are pricey, those things are pricier. But they do help. They do douse the inflammation. But if you're going to get a long-term result, you can take that at a shot glass a day and so on and so forth. And I mean, and if that's within the framework of your ability to do that's fine. But eventually you start losing the battle if you start doing all the other things. And then you have to start taking more and more. Where our goal is to get a long-term effect by going to the cause of the problem, the cause of the inflammation, which is like everything we're going to talk about today and more, as I said before. So, yeah. So we get that inflammation is the key. We get that fish oil is supposed to do that. We haven't seen fish oil make a big whoop. That's why we picked on fish oil versus Zango or any of these other things, because they do seem to do better than me. Yeah. They do seem to get. And turmeric, we've used turmeric when we've gotten to a point in treatment where the inflammation just wasn't breaking and we needed to make a breakthrough. But we didn't use it forever. We use it just to make a breakthrough and then get on with the rest of the protocol, which Dr. Gates can start talking about. Yeah, I mean, the next thing is what, infections you want to talk about? Mm-hmm. Is that it?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about
infections create inflammation too.
Right, and so we're now seeing, relative to autoimmune disease, infections within the gastrointestinal tract, infections, for example, in the thyroid, are triggering the immune system to try and kill these bad bacteria or viruses, and as a consequence, that creates inflammation throughout the system. So you can be taking your 3 grams of fish oil a day, but it likely is not going to combat all of that inflammation coming from your immune system.
Or aloe vera or turmeric or whatever.
Yeah, and
I mean, we should have caused that inflammation, but fish oil is good because, again, we're not trying to bang on the fish oil. We're just saying, man, there's a ton of fish oil out there, and there's a ton of people taking it, and it's really expensive, and we just haven't had the experience.
And there's a ton of people still with chronic disease who are not getting better.
Yeah, who aren't getting better.
Yeah. And so infections are a big part of it. We talk about nutrition, and nutrition only from the standpoint of, are you getting the right vitamins from what you're eating? Basically eating a colorful diet, which means a diet that's rich in many vegetables of different colors is probably the best thing to do, a plant-based diet. Mm-hmm. All of our information regarding these bad bacterial concentrations of the gut find that these bacteria that are bad do not like to eat vegetables. and they die if you feed them vegetables. Whereas if you feed them grains and other saturated fats, they tend to grow. And so
one of the factors in my becoming a vegetarian is Dr. Gates, if you tune in every week, is always talking about studies and studies and studies and studies and studies. And I've read a few studies, and probably hundreds in this particular subject, and not one of them ever said, all of them ever said, if you're going to get this vitamin, or if you're going to get that mineral, or if you're going to decrease infection, or if you're going to decrease the antibiotic, the bacterial effect or on your gut, or that, everyone said, and the way you can do that is, and every one of them would say, eat spinach, eat broccoli, eat nuts, eat that. None of them ever said, go kill a cow and eat it. I'm not anti people eating meat, okay, just for the record. However, with that and other considerations, I mean, after you read a couple of hundred of those articles, you start going, maybe I should eat a lot more vegetable, or maybe I should just eat, stick to the vegetables and meats. And I'm not eating meat a couple of times a week. It just works better for me to not do that. So, but yeah, the studies.
There's something termed dysfunctional mitochondria, which basically means your body cannot make energy. We're now seeing that viral infections can cause the little energy powerhouses in your cells not to work. We can see that CoQ10, I'm sure a lot of you out there taking CoQ10, can help the mitochondria to work a little better. But lots of times it's underlying immune response not clearing out intracellular infections like viruses, like mycoplasma, that can result in the mitochondria starting to fail. So that's a more minor one relative to this topic. Now we're on to stress, the infamous stress. And at this point in the broadcast, like we do almost every week, we mention the book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers.
I couldn't remember. I was trying to know the name of it for the article.
It is by Dr. Robert Sapolsky. He's from Stanford University. He is a neuroscientist, and he is the world's foremost researcher on stress. And this book, even though it can be technical at times, is the best lay piece of literature we have ever seen regarding the effects of stress on the human being, especially chronic stress. We have so many patients where they'll say, oh, I'm not under stress, I'm not under stress. And you start to ask them more questions, and they're losing their house, and they're going through divorce. All these factors, yet they're just...
Or I'm handling it well.
Yeah, I'm handling it well. Yeah. I'm not stressed. Dr. Rutherford will always make fun of me because I have a tendency to be more of a type A personality. And he'll say, I'm not stressed. I'm not stressed. Because a lot of us are.
Because that's what he says.
Yeah.
I'm not stressed.
Because a lot of us are under a lot of stress, or maybe it's self-imposed stress in our daily routine that is affecting us. And we need to acknowledge the effects of stress on the human being. And really, it's not a good thing to be chronically stressed out, especially it can lead to your gastrointestinal tract breaking down. It can imbalance your immune system. It can shut off reproductive function. It can shut off digestive function. And so now, if your pH in your stomach is 3 versus 2, then you can get exponentially more protein in your small intestine. That could be hard for your intestine.
In other words, your stomach's not acidic enough to break down the foods that go in there, and if they don't get broken down, like proteins or even minerals and things like that, then they're not getting to the place where they need to get to, or they'll get to the place where they need to get to, but they won't be absorbed because they're too large. For those who are having nutrient deficiency problems, you might be taking nutrients that just aren't breaking down because you have enough hydrochloric acid in your stomach.
And we see that all the time, especially as we
stress
age.
Causes that.
Yeah,
Aging and stress causes.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would say relative to stress, as we've done this over the years, I tend to see things in like categories, or I don't know how you would call it, but if I really had a catalog, we do majorly just more or less now chronic pain, chronic fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, peripheral neuropathies, these things that just go on and on and on. Chronic pain technically is what? Pain that's there for more than 6 weeks or something like that. But I mean, these are migraines for years and things of that nature. And if I had to put in huge categories, I would say stress is like maybe the factor that if we don't break the stress cycle for that patient, they're not getting better.
You're right.
I see immunity as more than inflammation. I see inflammation as kind of a subset of immunity. So I know inflammation is the big thing out there, but we see a tremendous amount of autoimmune patients. We didn't set out to do that. It's just that those are the patients that showed up with these problems. And so inflammation, I'm trying to draw a little picture. You got stress, You got autoimmunity for those of you who have these types of problems. You have, yes, the infamous inflammation, because inflammation, the point is going to be, is something that can be marketed and tons of products can be sold on it, and they're expensive. And some of them work temporarily. But in the end, and then you have fish oil, that isn't working maybe quite as well as the rest of the things. But I think those seem to be the two biggest things. I mean, if I had to put two big categories of chronic pain, I'd probably put stress, which is where Dr. Gates is right now, and autoimmunity, which is essentially affected by pretty much everything that we're
I agree.
talking
I mean, you're talking about an immune system throughout the entire body that can create inflammation in a second.
And again,
yeah, 3 grams of fish oil is not.
Okay, and there it is.
Not going to.
So I'm trying. That's what we're trying to build. This is the problem, and then you got someone on television telling you to take this, and then this is gonna change your problem. And of all the things that you're told, we just see the least result with this. So that's why we picked it as a topic to give us a vehicle to talk about the framework of what really gets you to the point of taking fish oil or other things, and the effectiveness of each.
So now
it's important.
Now we're going to talk about hormones. Hormones can be associated with inflammation, especially inflammatory states where prolactin increases. Prolactin can be an inflammatory hormone, so we test patients for that. We also see with obesity that obesity will create almost its own set of hormones throughout the body that are inflammatory and cause a person to keep eating and send signals to the gastrointestinal tract for only certain bacteria to grow, the bad bacteria. It's very, very interesting. And so obesity can be associated with that. Obesity can also be associated with conversion of a dominant hormone to a non-dominant hormone, termed aromatization. So what that means is that a female can take on more male characteristics and vice versa. A male can take on more female characteristics.
More specifically, even than that, it means that you as a female have chemical processes that are turning as a male, it's turning your testosterone into estrogen.
Right.
And in a female, it's producing more testosterone from the estrogen itself.
Right.
And there are other things that go along with it. But I would hope you probably intuitively realize that's not a good thing as a female to have too much testosterone, or as a male to have too much estrogen.
Exactly. And those can be inflammatory for the whole system by basically causing more body mass, more inflammation, more obesity, and
if you have that happening, you're not losing weight. If you're heavy and you're trying to lose weight and you want to know one of the 12 reasons why that's not happening, that's a major player. And the major player also is what you just mentioned with the gut and the bacteria that create those two things. Man, if you truly are trying to lose weight and you can't lose weight, you have either one of those two things. That it is not happening, and fish oil isn't fixing it. Yeah, I was thinking though. I guess I made a statement that I'm going to roll back on. I have had some folks that have taken fish oils and felt like their hormone function did improve to some degree. Okay. So I'll concede that.
Touche. And then the last one is toxins. We don't see this as being a major factor for many of our patients, but have we seen it clinically? Yes, where a person has been exposed to toxins, heavy metals, other chemicals, where that can disrupt their physiology. It may affect insulin production from the pancreas. It can affect the way the pain neurons transmit information. It can cause things like peripheral neuropathy. So toxins are important. We have a gal right now, I think we mentioned it in a previous broadcast, where we referred her to another doctor who's now doing chelation with her because she has been exposed to heavy metals. And this is someone who's been to the University of Utah Medical Center twice for 2 week stays, both times, was flown there by her insurance. And even though she hadn't gotten better in that setting, now she is like a different person. She's coming back to life. Right. So toxins can be a big factor.
And the thing, for those of you who are alternative oriented, I'll just tag on to that. People come in and in their consult, they're possessed with the toxins. And I understand why that is, because when I first got into this, part of the functional medicine hours that I took, and I took over 300 hours postgraduate in functional medicine before I started to get into this, and there was a man, the hardest section of the whole thing was toxins. And they went over every toxin known to man. And I was freaking out because I'm thinking, like, how do you test them and how do you chelate them out? I mean, chelation can get pretty expensive. Those of you who may be aware of that, it can get up to like $30,000. Not as expensive as taking the shot of juice at 32 or 36 or $40 a bottle or whatever it is by any means. But in the end, we have found that it seems like only targeted people really, where toxins are really a big issue, and like Dr. Gates is saying, we'll find mostly it'll be a heavy metal here, something that'll be really obvious in the history. Like this gal's husband we're in Nevada, mining's a big thing here. This gal's husband worked in the mines. She has an autoimmune problem. She's diabetic type 1, even though she was a Division I college basketball player. She's diabetic type 1. And what happens is the antibodies that were made against her pancreas and were probably attacking other things. And then when the husband comes home from the mines with all these metals all over and she's exposed, so when she's washing exposed, then that was absorbed into her. Turned out that she was doing better, but that has majorly broke the case. I mean, she is getting so much better, and we've had her do some metal chelation, and so she's doing way better. Being done by a medical doctor. Right, not by we work with an integrated practice, right. and that's not something that we can do as non-medical personnel, but we have in this state. So we have an osteopath here who is doing that, and so again, if you talk about inflammation. Yeah, and so that's it. So that's a significant part of the inflammation. And again, I'm trying to make the point of I do the interviews here, so I kind of have a good feel for what people are coming in expecting and kind of wanting to direct us towards. And inflammation's a big one. Seems like everybody that comes in here is on fish oil and vitamin D, and the vitamin D is probably justified. There's still a lot of misunderstanding.
But it's again the same concept that we should talk
about. Okay, and we could do another one on vitamin D.
We really should.
We actually could probably do it right now. You're here, you're interested.
Yeah, the snippet on vitamin D is we test all of our patients for vitamin D,
and they're all low.
Yeah,
they're all low.
It is a rarity if we get one a month that is not low.
Yes.
And so, in essence,
like a year.
Yeah. The current studies are showing that patients who are deficient in vitamin D can take vitamin D, but really the underlying problem is the immune system. And so the immune system is chewing up the vitamin D at such a high rate. That's why the vitamin D is low. A lot of our patients can take 10,000 IUs of vitamin D a day, and they have no change in their lab tests.
And we've seen patients who have gone through the protocols of figuring out which of these are their problems and then eliminating them or calming them down, getting control. And without giving them vitamin D, seeing their vitamin D creep up.
Exactly.
Without them taking any vitamin D. I guess that's kind of the point we're trying to make relative to pretty much everything. But again, I think the fish oil thing is just, to me, there's so much marketing involved with it, and then there's so many dead little fishies out there. I'm not that bad, but I mean, that was just a joke, but kind of a joke. I mean, there's a lot of fish oil flying around. You go to your local pharmacy, and there's an entire section on fish oil that equals every other supplement put together.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a little bit of what's kind of set this off in a sense of maybe this is a good tool to make a point. And vitamin D is the same. And again, I would have to say from 30 some years of being involved in this type of stuff that when you start seeing something like that, you go to Costco and they have this ginormous section on fish oils. Then they have this ginormous section on vitamin D. Somebody's selling that stuff and I mean, now you go to the doctors, it's low vitamin D. Everybody's even the docs are on board. They're giving shots for vitamin D, 55,000.
No, they're doing huge capsules, 50,000.
Now they're doing capsules. Yeah. And so, but why? What is another thing, the fish oil speaks to, and that vitamin D now is now on our target here, speaks to is early on in my career, when I took over this practice from a gentleman who was doing nutritional work, the mantra of the alternative world is we're getting to the cause of the problem with vitamin A or vitamin C or this, that, and everything. And it was kind of true, but I think it was just simply, it was less dangerous than trying to do it any other way. But in my mind, it was still, well, okay, if I got to take this for the rest of my life, then, am I getting to the cause of the problem? And so I wasn't very enthusiastic about what I was doing. And the interesting part was, I do it, and I actually did muscle testing back then, which has its strengths. Okay, it's not something that we use, but that was a little bit iffy for me. Maybe I just wasn't good at it. It's entirely possible for all of you who do the kinesiology out there. But on top of it, I noticed that certain people couldn't afford to do vitamins, so I would give them a blood sugar diet. And in 3 months, they'd be like a different human being. They'd be great, and their energy levels would be good, and their brain would be better, and so on and so forth. Then I started to kind of lose confidence, because I thought, now this seems to be getting to the cause of the problem. This seems to be coordinating their physiology. This seems to be reducing inflammation. Their brain's starting to work better. You're supposed to take fish oil for your brain. Why? Because your brain's inflamed. Okay? I mean, you're not taking cholesterol for your brain, are you? And your brain's 50% cholesterol. Why aren't we out there selling cholesterol? We need to do a whole show on cholesterol. Okay. We just have to do it.
We'll do it.
Cholesterol.
We're being smacked with some topics. We got to do gluten probably again. Non-celiac gluten sensitivity.
Cholesterol bugs me more than anything. Right. You guys are being so scammed on cholesterol, and Dr. Gates will probably get nervous when I say that. But I'll do that one. I'll tell you.
Well, it goes back to, okay, the average American eating 2 Big Macs a day and what they're eating. Yeah, will a statin maybe help them? Possibly. But again, it's neglecting the underlying cause. I mean, some of our patients, their cholesterol goes down by just correcting these basic things. Right. But the system is not set up to change someone's nutrition.
No. So you go back to the brain, and you go back to the fish oils for the brain. What are the fish oils doing? It's calming down inflammation. You give a person a blood sugar diet, it calms their blood sugar down. Oh, guess what abnormal blood sugar does to your brain, whether it's high or low? Creates inflammation in the brain. Indeed, I finally have heard something on the news not very long ago. It couldn't have been less than 2 months ago, that said they're thinking that diabetes causes inflammation of the brain and Alzheimer's. And we've talked about calling it diabetes type 3 for a while now, because people who have Alzheimer's, blood sugar is definitely involved. There's a couple things involved. It seems to me like blood sugar and autoimmunity and inflammation is definitely involved.
Oh, yeah.
And then inflammation, it opens it up to all of this.
And now stress.
And now you're going to take how much fish oil?
3 grams.
3 grams, and your brain's going to be better.
Which is
the
recommended dose. So many of our patients come and take in 1.5 grams, which the studies have shown do nothing.
So I guess what we're banging against is some of the advertisements out there. Take your fish oil, and this is going to be great, and so on and so forth. And you're going to have to understand that what we're going through is a societal problem right now. Society's changed. We take a lot of antibiotics. Now that's starting to come back on us. I'm sure everybody's aware. We take too many non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, the Tylenols and the aspirins and all these different types of things that are damaging your liver and your gut and your stomach and your cell walls, and it's creating inflammation. It's creating the inflammation that it's supposed to kind of help to affect. So stress, the toxins, a little bit. I get that, but if you're not feeling good and you have inflammation and you're taking things and it's not working, I mean, what we're talking about is what has to be done. You need to start looking at the whole ball of wax. Even your sleep, you need to look at. Even not enough sleep is inflammatory to you. For those of you who are excited that you sleep 4 to 6 hours a night, so we're putting it all on fish oil today. We're using it as a tool for more or less.
So I think that pretty well covers the topic. I mean, we can go on, but I think we've hit the main points. We're at the 45-minute mark.
We're at the 45-minute mark. Let's see, we've done nutrition, we've done stress, we've done endocrine. Yeah, we did them all. Yeah. Well, we pretty much did them all. I mean, we could expand. We could do an hour on each one of those topics. But I do think that that really was the intent. I think, what bugs me as I watch these television shows. Another one. I'll get it off my chest. Another one's like probiotics. Okay, not saying probiotics are bad. Not saying we've never used them. Okay, we certainly use them, but really, 70% of this television now, 70% of your immune system is in your gut, and you need to take probiotics, and it's going to fix this. Well, if you have all the things we were talking about today, and if you have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and if you have leaky gut, which we didn't talk about today, and if you have an undiagnosed parasite in there, which there's a lot more out there than people are aware of, and if you have H. pylori, well, I took the medication, okay, is it gone? Well, I don't know. Nobody checked to see it was gone. And if you have any of these things that we're talking about, good luck with taking lots of probiotics. Might it make you feel better for a little bit? Yeah, but I get way more people coming and going, yeah, it's weird, but I tried this diet and a lot of different diets, and I feel better. My stomach has calmed down, so on and so forth. So that's the point we're trying to make. I mean, the fish oils are to me way oversold. The probiotics are way oversold. I can get into a whole lot of things, but if you're taking a lot of fish oil and it's not working for you, stop taking it. Find out what the deal is. If you're taking a lot of fish oil and it's making some changes, you need to start looking at some of these things unless you're happy taking fish oil for the rest of your life. And you'll see that ultimately those doses are going to have to go up and up. What I find is a lot of patients at some point kind of go, maybe this is too much fish oil, maybe or something along those lines. So those are that was kind of a vehicle for us today to make a number of points on a number of things. And I hope this is kind of a new trial for us of going about something this way, but I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any feedback on the way we went about this, we'd be open to hearing what you thought about it at powerhealthtalk.com. Feel free to send your comments. We seem to get some comments every time we do this, and that's a good thing. Helps us to know what you want to hear. And that's all I would say. Until next week.
Till next week. Thank you for watching.
Yeah, that's it. You don't have something else to say that I forgot to say?
No.
Okay.
We hit it.
Well, that's it then. That's it. We'll see you next week, and thanks for watching.